Imagine waking before dawn in the choking fog of 19th century London, your bones aching from a night on a straw mattress, knowing that one bad day could mean starvation. As a street vendor, your life is a daily gamble why you, with your modern comforts, wouldn't survive even 24 hours in this world. Picture yourself in mid-1800s London, a sprawling metropolis teeming with over 2 million souls, where the air hums with the ceaseless energy of empire and industry. The streets are alive, a labyrinth of narrow alleys and broad thoroughfares, lined with gas lamps flickering like hesitant stars against the perpetual haze of coal smoke. This is the era of Queen Victoria, a time of grand exhibitions and grim inequalities, where the Industrial Revolution has drawn crowds from the countryside, swelling the city into a chaotic hive of opportunity and desperation. But the variety is endless hot eel pies steaming in the chill air, their flaky crusts promising a fleeting warmth, second-hand clothes mended a dozen times over, smelling faintly of mothballs and previous owners' lives, perhaps even trinkets like bootlaces or cheap ribbons glinting under the weak sunlight. You navigate the iconic markets that pulse like the city's heart. Your Covent Garden, with its grand arches and overflowing stalls, where the scent of bruised peaches mingles with the sharp tang of fish from Billingsgate, or Petticoat Lane on a Sunday, a riot of voices bargaining in Yiddish, Cockney, and a dozen other tongues, the ground slick with discarded peels, and the air thick with the sizzle of chestnuts roasting over open braziers. Here, the crowds press close pickpockets weaving like shadows, urchins darting underfoot, and fine ladies in crinoline stepping gingerly past the muck. The sounds envelop you, the rhythmic cries of "Buy my lavender," or "Fresh herrings, 2 a penny," blending into a symphony of survival. But beneath this vibrant chaos lies a harsher truth, one that tests your every step. The day's challenges loom like the fog itself, unrelenting weather that soaks your thin clothes to the bone, whether it's the biting sleet of winter or the oppressive humidity of summer, turning your produce to rot before your eyes. Competition is cutthroat. Rival vendors undercut your prices with a sly grin, or worse, muscle you out of prime spots with threats whispered in the din. Health risks shadow you constant, the grime of the streets breeding cholera and typhus, your hands raw from handling damp goods, your lungs clogged with the city's perpetual smog, and the earnings, meager at best, often just a handful of pennies after a 12-hour grind, equivalent to perhaps $5 or $10 in today's money, barely enough for a loaf of bread and a corner in a crowded lodging house. It's tempting to romanticize this life, the freedom of the open air, the thrill of the haggle, but let's draw a gentle parallel to something more familiar. Think of today's gig economy workers, those delivery drivers or rideshare operators hustling through apps on their phones. Like you, the Victorian vendor, they chase independence, piecing together a living from fleeting transactions. But oh, the contrast! Modern apps offer star ratings to build trust, GPS for safe routes, and surge pricing to boost earnings on busy days. You, however, rely solely on your wits and weathered instincts, no safety nets, no algorithms to guide you, just the raw pulse of the street dictating your fate. It's a mildly amusing irony, isn't it? In our world of instant gratification, we've softened the edges of that same scramble, wrapping it in digital convenience. Now, as we embark on this journey through a day in your shoes, I invite you to settle in comfortably, perhaps under a warm blanket with the lights dimmed low. Whether you're drifting off to sleep in a quiet suburb or listening during a late-night commute in a bustling city, share in the comments where you are and what time it is. Let's create a little communal thread across the ages, a relaxing echo of those crowded markets. Breathe deep, let the worries of your day fade, and immerse yourself in this soothing tale of resilience and absurdity. As the first hints of dawn pierce the gloom, you stir from your meager rest, ready to face the morning's preparation, gathering your goods, dodging the early pitfalls, and stepping into the fray that awaits. As those first hints of dawn begin to filter through the grimy window panes, you stir from your meager rest, the weight of the day already pressing upon you like the heavy fog outside. It's barely 3 a.m. in the cramped slums of Seven Dials or Whitechapel, where the narrow streets twist like forgotten promises, and the air hangs thick with the damp residue of the Thames. In this pitch-black hour, far before the sun dares to rise, your world awakens not to the gentle chime of an alarm, but to the distant wail of factory whistles piercing the silence like mournful ghosts, summoning workers to their endless shifts. You bolt upright on your thin straw pallet, the coarse fibers prickling against your skin, your body attuned to this brutal rhythm through sheer survival instinct. Perhaps it's a neighbor's hoarse cry that jolts you fully awake. Up now. Or the market will be picked clean. Or simply the gnawing hunger in your belly that refuses to let you linger. There's no snooze button here. No cozy duvet to burrow under. Just the stark reality that every minute lost to sleep is a penny slipped from your grasp. With eyes adjusting to the gloom, you fumble for your breakfast, if you can call it that. A crust of stale bread from yesterday's unsold loaf, dry and tough as leather, washed down with a swig of cold tea brewed weak to stretch the leaves. If fortune smiled the day before, there might be a scrap of cheese or a bruised apple scavenged from the market's discards, its skin wrinkled but still faintly sweet against your tongue. Many mornings, though, you start empty, the hollow ache in your stomach a familiar companion, reminding you that vendors like you often ate only what couldn't be sold. Next comes the ritual of dressing, layering on your ragged woolens, a threadbare coat patched at the elbows, trousers mended with mismatched stitches that tell tales of countless repairs. The fabric clings damply to your frame, already infused with the perpetual chill of the tenement where drafts whistle through cracked walls like uninvited guests. No waterproof gear for you, a oilskin cape is a luxury beyond reach, so you brace for the fog that will seep through every seam, turning your bones to ice before the sun even crests. Now, you gather your tools of the trade, the battered barrow or woven basket that serves as your mobile shop. Perhaps you've rented it from a local lender for a steep fee, 2 pence a day that nibbles away at your slim profits like a persistent rat. You check its wheels in the dim light, oiling them with a bit of tallow if you're lucky, the squeak echoing softly in the confined space. Inside, you pack any remnants from the previous night, a few wilted cabbages or overripe pears, their earthy scents mingling with the musty odor of the room. Every item is precious, a potential lifeline against the day's uncertainties. But oh, the gritty realities that make this start so unforgiving. Realities that would unravel your modern resolve in mere hours. The bone-chilling cold and fog envelope everything, seeping into your very marrow, fostering rheumatism that twists joints like gnarled roots, or pneumonia that claims lives with a whisper. There's no central heating here, no insulated walls, just thin plaster that weeps condensation, turning your home into a clammy tomb. You share this cramped room with 5 to 10 others, fellow vendors perhaps, or a family huddled together for scant warmth. Children stir nearby, their small faces pale in the shadows. They might join you later, hawking matches or begging for scraps, their tiny voices adding to the chorus of the streets. And the mental toll weighs heaviest in these quiet moments. Anxiety coils like smoke in your chest, fretting over the weather that could ruin your goods in an instant, a sudden downpour turning fruits to mush, or frost nipping at delicate blooms. Thieves lurk in the alleys, ready to pilfer your stock overnight, leaving you with empty hands and emptier pockets. It's a dread that gnaws relentlessly, turning rest into restless vigilance. To draw a gentle parallel, consider the morning of a modern gig worker, perhaps you, in another life, waking in a warm apartment, the hum of central heating, a constant comfort. You sip hot coffee while scrolling an app for the day's orders, weather forecasts at your fingertips to plot efficient routes. No hauling heavy barrows through mud electric bikes or cars whisk you along smoothly, turning toil into a streamlined hustle. It's almost amusing, this contrast, the Victorian vendor's raw endurance versus today's tech-buffered ease, where algorithms shield you from the dawn's harshest bites. Let me share a poignant anecdote from Henry Mayhew's London Labour and the London Poor, penned in 1851, where a weathered costermonger confides his dread of the dawn. He describes it as the gateway to endless toil, that moment when the darkness yields not to hope, but to the relentless grind ahead, the barrow's weight on sore shoulders, the fog's clammy embrace, all conspiring to test the soul before the day even begins. It's a quiet testament to the resilience required, delivered in Mayhew's pages with a raw honesty that echoes through time. As you finally step out into the pre-dawn streets, your barrow rumbling over uneven cobbles, the city's slumbering pulse begins to quicken around you, readying for the market rush and the battles that follow. With the first faint glow of dawn creeping over the rooftops, you press onward through the pre-dawn streets, your barrow rumbling like a reluctant companion over the uneven cobbles. The city's pulse quickens subtly around you, a murmur of distant carts and muffled voices hinting at the market rush ahead. It's now around 4 a.m. And your destination looms in the misty distance, the sprawling wholesale markets of Covent Garden or Billingsgate, where the day's fortunes are forged in the dim light of gas lamps flickering like wary eyes. You trudge miles on foot, every step a labored push against the heavy barrow's resistance, its wooden frame groaning under the empty weight that soon promises to multiply. The streets are a quagmire of mud and refuse, sucking at your boots with each weary lift, the chill fog wrapping around you like a shroud, carrying the sharp tang of coal smoke and the faint, briny whisper of the river nearby. No omnibuses or trams for the likes of you. The poor have only their legs and sheer will to carry them, turning what might be a brisk journey into an exhausting pilgrimage that tests your endurance before the real work begins. Arriving at the market gates as the clock edges toward 5 a.m., the scene erupts into a controlled chaos of lanterns bobbing like fireflies, illuminating crates piled high with the earth's bounty. You weave through the throng, your breath visible in the crisp air, inhaling the heady mix of fresh earth from potatoes, the sweet rot of bruised apples, and the salty brine of herrings fresh from the docks. Haggling begins in earnest with the wholesalers, their faces shadowed under broad hats, voices gruff from years of early rises. A shilling for that lot. You're taking the mickey. You might counter, pointing to a heap of slightly blemished produce. Potatoes speckled with dirt, apples dimpled from rough handling, or wriggling eels destined for steaming pies. It's a dance of words and gestures, your voice rising in feigned outrage, theirs dropping in mock concession, all to shave off a precious penny or two. Once a deal is struck, you load up with deliberate care, stacking the goods in precarious towers, crates of herrings slick with scales, sacks of potatoes heavy as stones, bundles of eels twisting faintly in their bindings. You tie everything down with frayed ropes, your fingers numb from the cold, knotting them tight against the jolts of the return journey. A single spill could scatter your inventory across the cobbles, turning profit into loss in an instant, the fruits rolling into gutters like escaped dreams. Amid the loading, quick interactions spark with fellow vendors, a nod here, a jest there about a rival's overripe wares, but beneath the banter simmers a quiet rivalry, eyes darting to see who snags the choicest deals first. As the market hums toward 6 a.m., the gritty realities of this dawn run settle in like the fog itself, realities that would have your modern self longing for the comfort of home before the sun fully rises. The physical strain is unrelenting. You're hauling 50 to 100 pounds now, the barrow's handles digging into your palms like insistent thorns, your back arching under the load in a way that invites lifelong aches and injuries, twisted spines, and knotted muscles that no physician's tonic could fully mend. And it's not just you child vendors, as young as 8, scurry about like shadows, their small hands helping to stack crates or fetch bundles, their faces pinched with exhaustion that speaks volumes of the era's casual exploitation where tiny shoulders bore adult burdens without question. Then there's the economic pressure, a vise tightening with every transaction you pay up front, with yesterday's meager earnings, coins clinking from your pocket like reluctant farewells, knowing a bad bargain, a batch of herrings gone off by noon, or potatoes riddled with rot, cooled leave you penniless, teetering on the brink of the workhouse. No margins for error here, one misjudged deal, and the day's labor evaporates like mist in the sun. Dangers lurk in the shadows, too. The slippery cobbles underfoot, glazed with dew or early rain, threatening a tumble that could shatter bones or scatter goods, and the early morning pickpockets, sly figures melting into the fog, eyeing vendors flush with fresh cash from home, ready to relieve you of your stake before you've even begun selling. For a moment, imagine the stark contrast to a modern gig worker's supply run. You, perhaps, in today's world, tapping an app like Instacart from the warmth of your kitchen, browsing options with a hot mug in hand. Supplies arrive at your door via delivery, no miles trudged in the dark, no haggling under flickering lamps. Payment plans stretch costs over time, refunds cushion mistakes, turning what was once a high-stakes gamble into a seamless, almost comical, how technology tames the dawn's wild uncertainties, buffering you from the raw edge that Victorian vendors faced head-on, en route back as the sky lightens to a pale gray. You practice your costermonger's cry, that melodic pitch honed to cut through the city's din. Hot eels, penny a lot. You murmur under your breath, the words rolling off your tongue with a rhythmic lilt, imagining the steam rising from pies later, their savory aroma drawing crowds. It's part rehearsal, part ritual, these calls echoing faintly among the carts, a chorus of vendors tuning their voices like instruments for the symphony of the streets ahead. With your barrow now laden and the market fading behind you, you head toward the prime selling spots, the weight of your load a promise of the bustling hours to come, where the real art of vending unfolds under the rising sun. As the sun climbs higher, casting a soft, golden haze over the awakening streets, you finally arrive at your chosen pitch around 6 a.m., the weight of your laden barrow easing slightly as you come to a halt. The market's distant hum fades into the background, replaced by the emerging symphony of the city stirring to life, hoofbeats on cobbles, the creak of shop shutters rolling up, and the faint chime of church bells marking the hour. You've made it to a bustling corner on Oxford Street, or perhaps a lively spot in the East End markets, where the foot traffic promises a steady stream of passers-by. But claiming this patch of pavement is no simple matter. It's first come, first served in this cutthroat world of street vending, and you've timed your arrival just right to stake your claim before the latecomers descend. You scan the area quickly, eyeing the prime locations near omnibus stops, where workers alight in droves, their boots thudding against the ground like a rhythmic drumbeat. A rival vendor might already be eyeing the same spot, leading to a tense standoff, harsh words exchanged in hushed tones, perhaps a shove or two if tempers flare, all under the guise of casual jostling. "This airs my pitch, mate," you mutter firmly, positioning your barrow squarely in place, its wheels digging into the grime like anchors. It's a delicate balance of bravado and bluff, these territorial skirmishes where a sharp elbow or a well-timed glare can secure your livelihood for the day. No deeds or leases here, just the unwritten code of the streets, enforced by sheer persistence and the occasional fisticuffs that leave bruises blooming like unwelcome flowers on your arms. With your spot secured, you set to work arranging your goods with the care of an artist composing a still life, knowing that a tempting display is half the sale. You polish the apples to a dull shine with the hem of your apron, wiping away the morning dew that clings like tiny jewels, their skins blushing red against the weathered wood of your barrow. Potatoes are stacked in neat pyramids, their earthy scent rising in the warming air, while bundles of herrings gleam silver under the light, scales catching the sun like scattered coins. If you're peddling pies or eels, you stack them high, the steam from a makeshift warmer curling lazily upward, carrying the savory promise of hot, flaky pastry or wriggling delicacies ready for the pot. All the while you practice your cries, letting them roll out in a melodic wave fresh apples, 2 a penny. Hot pies piping hot, your voice joins the chorus of the street, a soothing cadence that draws eyes and ears alike, cutting through the din without aggression, more like a siren's gentle call than a bark. Early customers trickle in as the clock ticks towards 7 a.m., factory workers with soot-streaked faces and heavy-lidded eyes, hurrying to their 12-hour shifts in the mills and workshops that dot the city like grim fortresses. They pause briefly at your barrow, drawn by the aroma of baked potatoes splitting open with fluffy steam, or muffins warm from the oven, their golden tops dusted with sugar that crunches under hurried bites. "One potato, love," a weary woman might say, her shawl pulled tight against the lingering chill, handing over a farthing with calloused fingers. You serve them swiftly, wrapping the hot spud in a scrap of newspaper, the ink smudging faintly against the skin, simple sustenance to fuel their endless toil, a momentary comfort in the rush. These first sales are modest but vital, the clink of coins in your pocket like a quiet affirmation that the day's gamble might pay off. Bartering unfolds naturally with each transaction, a fluid dance without fixed prices, where every sale is a negotiation whispered over makeshift scales, perhaps a battered brass set balanced precariously on your barrow's edge. A customer haggles down the price of a bunch of eels, pointing out a sluggish one in the writhing mass, and you counter with feigned reluctance. "All right, 3p then, but ye're robbing me blind." The back and forth is part ritual, part survival, your scales tipping with a soft clank as you weigh out portions, ensuring neither side feels cheated. It's all in the charisma, that street-smart charm that turns a potential loss into a loyal repeat buyer, your smile disarming even the toughest bargainer. But beneath this lively routine lurks the gritty underbelly that would test even the hardiest soul, making you wonder how anyone endured it day after day. The constant noise envelopes you like a living entity.
Competing vendor.
Cries overlapping in a cacophony that's somehow rhythmic, horse-drawn carts clattering by, with iron-shod wheels sparking on stones, and the occasional shout from a coachman urging his team onward. The air thickens with chaos, mingled scents assaulting your senses, the acrid bite of horse manure piled in gutters, the fetid waft of sewage from open drains that trickle lazily downhill, carrying the city's waste in a slow, inevitable flow. It's a sensory barrage that numbs over time, but in those early hours it hits like a wave, the smells clinging to your clothes like unwelcome guests. Legal risks shadow your every move. The peelers, those stern policemen in their tall helmets patrolling with watchful eyes, ready to harass unlicensed vendors like yourself. A fine of a few shillings could wipe out your morning's earnings, or worse, they might confiscate your goods outright, hauling away your barrow in a humiliating spectacle that leaves you empty-handed and exposed. When you keep one eye on the horizon for their approach, ducking behind your display or melting into the crowd, when a uniform glints in the distance, the threat adding a layer of quiet tension to the air. Health hazards compound the strain, your lungs drawing in the polluted haze that hangs over London like a perpetual veil, the infamous London particular fog, thick, yellow, and choking with coal soot and industrial fumes that seeps into your chest, promising coughs that rattle like loose pebbles and illnesses that could sideline you for days. Standing exposed for hours, the damp seeps through your boots, chilling your bones, while the sun, when it breaks through, beats down without mercy, no shade but what your barrow provides. Imagine, for a gentle contrast, slipping into the shoes of a modern gig worker on platforms like Etsy or Uber Eats, where marketing unfolds digitally from the comfort of a screen. No need to shout your wares into the void, just polished photos and clever descriptions drawing customers with a click. And payments flow seamlessly through apps, reviews, building trust like an invisible shield, far removed from relying on raw street charisma that could falter on a weary day. It's almost amusing how algorithms handle the hustle, buffering you from the chaos that once demanded every ounce of your voice and vigor. To bring this morning's frenzy to life, picture yourself as a fictional muffin man drawn from the real tales of Victorian streets, a wiry fellow named Jem with flower-dusted whiskers and a cry that could charm birds from the trees. One crisp morning, as you, Jem, arrange your steaming muffins in neat rows, a rival vendor sidles up, his eyes glinting with mischief. He accidentally bumps your barrow, sending a few treats tumbling into the mud, a sly sabotage masked as clumsiness. But quick as a flash, you scoop them up, dust them off with a grin, and turn the mishap into a jest. Even me muffins like a bit o' adventure. Now they're seasoned with London earth. The crowd chuckles, drawn closer by your wit, turning potential loss into a boon as sales pick up. It's these small triumphs laced with absurdity that keep the spirit afloat amid the grind as 10 a.m. approaches and the morning rush begins to ebb. You feel the first pangs of fatigue settling in, your voice a touch hoarser from the cries, your feet aching from the stand. Yet the day stretches onward with the midday crowds promising fresh opportunities and challenges, where the true test of your vending prowess awaits under the heightening sun. As 10 a.m. approaches and the morning rush begins to ebb, you feel the first pangs of fatigue settling in, your voice a touch hoarser from the cries, your feet aching from the stand. Yet the day stretches onward with the midday crowds promising fresh opportunities and challenges, where the true test of your vending prowess awaits under the heightening sun. The streets swell now with the full pulse of the city, a living tide of humanity surging past your barrow in waves that seem endless. From 10 a.m. until 2 p.m., this is the midday peak, the heart of your day, when foot traffic reaches its zenith, and every moment demands your undivided attention. Imagine you rooted to your pitch like an ancient oak, as shoppers flood the pavements, housewives in starched aprons clutching baskets, clerks in threadbare suits hurrying back from errands, and children darting through the throng with wide-eyed curiosity. The air hums with their chatter, a soothing undercurrent of voices blending into a rhythmic murmur, punctuated by the occasional laugh or haggling exchange. You dive into non-stop selling, your hands a blur as you serve this relentless stream, doling out apples that crunch with freshness or pies whose flaky crusts crumble invitingly under eager fingers, lovely spuds fresh from the fields, 4 for a penny. You call out, your tone warm and inviting, drawing in a matronly shopper who inspects your wares with a critical eye, her bonnet bobbing as she nods approval. To keep everything tempting, you rotate your stock diligently, pushing the ripest fruits to the front where they gleam in the sunlight, their sweet, tangy scent wafting outward like an invisible lure, while hiding any bruised pieces at the back for later salvage. The sun climbs higher, warming the cobbles underfoot and casting long shadows that dance across your display, turning the scene into a living tapestry of colors, reds and golds of produce against the gray stone backdrop. Amid this bustle, lunch becomes a fleeting affair, snatched on the go without pausing your vigilance. You nibble at unsold scraps, a slightly wilted carrot here, a heel of bread there, or barter with a fellow vendor for a penny pie, its greasy warmth seeping through the paper wrapping as you take hasty bites between customers, The savory filling, perhaps mutton or eel, offers a brief burst of comfort, the flavors mingling with the street's omnipresent smells, the sharp tang of vinegar from a nearby fish stall, the yeasty aroma of fresh-baked loaves carried on the breeze. It's a far cry from a proper sit-down meal, but in this world, every second away from your barrow risks losing a sale. So you eat standing, crumbs tumbling to the ground where pigeons coo and peck, hopefully at your feet. As business ebbs in one spot, you adapt swiftly, unhitching your barrow with a creak of wood and wheels, then pushing it through the crowds to follow the flow, perhaps toward a factory gate where workers spill out for their midday break, their faces etched with the day's labor, or to the fringes of a street fair where revelers gather. The effort tugs at your muscles, the barrow's weight a constant companion, but the move pays off as new customers appear, their coins clinking into your pocket like raindrops in a tin cup. It's this nimbleness that keeps you afloat, a quiet dance of intuition and instinct amid the city's ever-shifting rhythms. But oh, the gritty realities of this midday grind would wear down even the sturdiest spirit, making you ponder why anyone clung to such a life. Exhaustion creeps in like a thief, your legs throbbing from hours of standing in whatever weather the skies bestow. Blistering sun that beats down relentlessly, turning your neck ruddy and your brow slick with sweat, or pouring rain that soaks through your thin coat, chilling you to the bone as water drips from your hat brim like persistent tears. No shelter beyond a makeshift awning of sacking, no breaks to sit and rest, you endure it all. The elements a merciless overseer that tests your resolve with every gust or glare. Theft and violence lurk in the shadows of the crowd, pickpockets weaving through the press like ghosts, their nimble fingers brushing against your apron pocket in search of your hard-earned pennies. You stay alert, one hand on your takings while the other serves, but sometimes a distraction, a boisterous customer, or a sudden commotion allows a sly hand to dip in, leaving you lighter and seething with quiet frustration. Worse still are the occasional brawls over customers when a rival vendor accuses you of poaching their trade, leading to shoved shoulders and heated words that escalate into scuffles, fists flying in a blur of cloth and grime. It's absurd, really, this territorial frenzy over a few feet of pavement, but in the heat of the moment, it feels like survival itself hangs in the balance. And underpinning it all is the relentless poverty cycle, your midday earnings, perhaps a handful of shillings if luck smiles, barely enough to cover the evening's meager supper or the rent on your cramped lodgings in a dingy tenement. Many vendors like you teeter on the edge, one bad day away from the workhouse's grim embrace, where the air reeks of despair and the days blur into enforced labor. It's a cycle as unyielding as the turning wheels of the omnibuses rumbling by, trapping you in a loop of scrape and survive, with little room for dreams beyond the next sale. For a gentle modern contrast, consider today's gig workers tapping away on apps like DoorDash or TaskRabbit, setting their own hours with a swipe. tracking earnings in real time on glowing screens that offer transparency you could only dream of, built-in safety features, an emergency button summoning help in seconds stand in stark relief to your Victorian isolation, where a cry for aid might dissolve unheard into the crowd's din. It's mildly amusing, isn't it? How technology cushions the blows that once landed raw and unrelenting, turning the hustle into something almost manageable from the comfort of a bike or car. To illustrate the fragility of it all, let's slip into a storytelling moment drawn from the real weary cellars captured in John Thompson's evocative 1870s photographs, those grainy images of slumped figures amid their barrows, faces lined with quiet endurance. Imagine a day gone awry for you, much like one Thompson might have witnessed the skies darkening unexpectedly around noon, a sudden downpour unleashing sheets of rain that pelt your produce like tiny arrows. Apples bob in growing puddles, their skins wrinkling as water seeps in, while pies turn sodden, their once crisp tops sagging into mush. Customers scatter for cover, leaving you alone with your ruined stock, the scent of wet earth and spoiled goods rising in a disheartening fog. You salvage what you can, perhaps hawking the least damaged items at a pittance half price on these beauties, fresh as the rain, your voice laced with forced cheer, but inside the loss gnaws like hunger, a reminder of how precariously your world balances on the whims of weather and whim. Yet, in true street vendor fashion, you press on, the absurdity of battling the elements with nothing but grit, turning the ordeal into a tale to chuckle over later, if only faintly, as 2 p.m. draws near and the midday peak begins to wane, the crowds thinning like mist in the warming air. You sense the shift toward afternoon's quieter rhythms. Your body aches with the day's toll, but the evening promises a final push, the twilight markets and homeward-bound workers offering one last chance to turn the tide before the long trudge home. As the afternoon unfolds from 2 p.m. onward, the crowds thinning like mist in the warming air, you feel the day's weight settling deeper into your bones, the once vibrant streets now echoing with a gentler hum. The midday frenzy gives way to a quieter rhythm, where the sun hangs lower in the sky, casting elongated shadows that stretch lazily across the cobbles like tired fingers from 2 until 6 p.m. So, this is the afternoon decline, a time of waning energy when the city's pulse slows and you must adapt to the ebbing flow, turning your focus to salvaging what remains of the day with a mix of cunning and quiet resolve. Imagine you, still at your pitch, surveying the remnants on your barrow, the apples that have lost their morning sheen, pies cooling in the softer light, their buttery aroma now mingling faintly with the earthy scent of approaching dusk. To avoid the heartbreak of waste, you begin discounting leftovers, slashing prices with a resigned yet hopeful call, fine fruits going cheap, 2 for a farthing before they're gone. Your voice, though weary, carries a soothing lilt, drawing in the stragglers, a weary laborer pausing on his way home, or a thrifty housewife eyeing bargains for her evening stew. The coins trickle in slower now, each one a small victory against the spoilage that threatens. The soft thud of produce into baskets, a rhythmic punctuation to the fading afternoon. In these quieter moments, bartering blooms as a gentle art, a way to inject variety into your dwindling stock. You sidle over to a neighboring vendor, perhaps the flower seller with her wilting blooms perfuming the air like forgotten whispers, and trade a handful of your bruised potatoes for a sprig of herbs or a wedge of cheese from another stall. A fair swap, eh? You murmur with a faint chuckle, the exchange feeling almost companionable in the emptying street, where the clink of traded goods echoes softly against the brick walls, a brief respite from the isolation of your trade. Networking weaves through this decline like threads in a worn tapestry as you trade tips with fellow vendors huddled in small clusters, their faces etched with the day's shared trials. Heard the markets lively by the docks come twilight, one might whisper, his breath visible in the cooling air, while you nod and share your own nugget, perhaps a shortcut to fresher suppliers, or a warning about a pilfering urchin spotted earlier. In a moment of quiet kindness, you might spot a child seller, no more than 10, their small frame burdened by a tray of matches or bootlaces, eyes wide with the weight of survival. You offer a spare apple, its skin still holding a hint of crispness, and a word of advice: keep your chin up, lad, tomorrow's another go. The gesture warms you inwardly, a flicker of humanity amid the grind, as the child's grateful smile cuts through the gathering shadows like a lantern's glow. As the hours stretch toward 6 p.m., wrapping up becomes your ritual, packing unsold goods with careful hands, wrapping pies in grease-proof paper that crinkles softly, nestling fruits in straw to cushion them against the jostle home. You hope they'll last till tomorrow, their scents now subdued, a faint promise clinging to the air as you secure the barrow with ropes that creak like old bones. The streets grow emptier still, the distant chime of a church bell marking time's gentle passage, leaving you in a cocoon of fading light and lingering echoes. But beneath this serene surface lurk the gritty realities that would test even the most enduring soul, whispering why you wouldn't last in this vendor's world. Fading stamina gnaws at you now, hunger pangs twisting in your belly from the minimal food snatched earlier, a crust of bread perhaps, or a sip from a questionable water pump, its metallic tang hiding perils like cholera that sweeps through the slums like an unseen fog. Diseases lurk in every shared cup or contaminated stream, a quiet threat that claims vendors by the score, leaving you to ponder the absurdity of battling invisible foes with nothing but grit and a prayer. Social stigma adds its own subtle sting as you're viewed as low class by the wealthier passers-by, gentlemen in top hats who curl their lips in disdain, their polished boots clicking past without a glance, or ladies in silk who clutch their skirts as if your mere presence might soil them. Their haughty whispers float on the breeze like unwelcome smoke, a reminder of the invisible barriers that keep you pinned to the pavement, your trade a badge of humility in a city stratified by birth and coin, and hovering over it all is the uncertainty, a slow afternoon like this meaning scant earnings, perhaps only a few pennies rattling lonely in your pocket, not enough for supper's thin gruel or the coal to warm your drafty room. No sick days to nurse a fever, no unemployment benefits to cushion a fall. One sluggish spell could tip you into the abyss, the workhouse's grim gates yawning wide with their stench of despair and drudgery. It's a precarious perch, this life, where hope flickers like a candle in the wind, mildly amusing in its relentless irony, chasing sails all day only to chase sleep on an empty stomach. For a gentle modern contrast, picture today's gig workers glancing at their apps, which predict slow periods with uncanny precision, allowing a seamless pivot from food delivery to offering rides, all with a few taps on a screen that glows reassuringly in their palms. Social safety nets weave a softer web, unemployment aid or community funds providing fallbacks that buffer the blows, turning potential hardship into a mere pause rather than a plunge. It's whimsically telling, isn't it, how algorithms and policies tame the chaos that once ruled unchecked, offering a buffer you could scarcely imagine amid your Victorian uncertainties. To weave this into a reflective segment on the vendor's lot, imagine pausing amid your packing, gazing at the horizon where the sun dips low, its amber rays painting the rooftops in soft farewell. This endless cycle of hope and hardship unfolds before you, the dawn's eager setup, the midday's fervent push, and now this afternoon's quiet surrender, only to repeat tomorrow in an unyielding loop. Each day a gamble with the skies and the streets, your barrow a faithful companion in this dance of survival, where small joys like a kind word or a timely sail punctuate the weariness. It's a lot that builds character, or so they say, but in truth it's a gentle absurdity, this perpetual chase after pennies in a world that spins indifferently onward, leaving you to find peace in the simple rhythm of it all. As 6 p.m. approaches and the afternoon fully yields to evening's embrace, the streets bathed in twilight's hush, you secure your barrow for the final leg, sensing the night's opportunities stirring just ahead. Twilight markets aglow with lamps, where one last flurry might redeem the day before the weary journey home. As the twilight market's inviting glow flickers in the distance, tempting with one last chance for a sale, your weary limbs whisper otherwise tonight, urging you toward the familiar path home, where the evening wind down awaits in quiet surrender. From 6 p.m. and onward, the city's clamor softens into a hush, the gas lamps blooming like hesitant stars against the deepening blue, their warm flicker casting dancing shadows on the uneven pavements as you trundle your barrow along, the wheels rumbling faintly over stones slick with evening dew. Imagine you arriving at your cramped lodgings, a dim doorway in a teeming tenement where the air hangs heavy with the mingled scents of coal smoke, damp plaster, and simmering pots from neighboring rooms. The journey home has been a plodding one, your barrow lighter now, but your steps heavier, each footfall echoing the day's accumulated aches, the sting of blistered hands, the dull throb in your back from hours of stooping and hauling. You ease through the threshold, the door creaking like a sigh of relief, and set about the ritual of counting your pennies, spilling them onto a scarred wooden table under the feeble glow of a tallow candle that sputters and dances, its waxy aroma curling through the chill air. These coins, often tallying to just 6 to 12 shillings for the week, scarcely $100 in today's terms, adjusted for time's indifferent march, represent your fragile harvest, clinking softly as you sort them with calloused fingers. First, the debts demand their due, a few pence to the costermonger for tomorrow's stock, perhaps a grudging payment to the landlord whose knock echoes like fate itself. What's left might buy a loaf or a bit of cheese, but it's a meager accounting, one that prompts a wry inner chuckle at the absurdity of it all, chasing abundance all day only to measure survival in tarnished coppers that slip through your grasp like sand. With the tally done, supper calls in its humble form, a simple meal scraped together from the day's unsold scraps, perhaps a stew of softened vegetables and a heel of bread, their earthy flavors mingling on your tongue with a hint of lingering street dust. Or, on leaner nights, a nip of gin for warmth, its sharp bite cutting through the fatigue like a fleeting spark, warming your insides as you huddle by the grate where a meager fire crackles faintly, its smoky tendrils weaving patterns in the air. If fortune smiles, this is shared in family time, squeezed into quarters where beds line the walls like silent sentinels, your spouse murmuring tales of their own day's toil, children clustered close with wide eyes, their laughter a soft balm against the encroaching dark. The room pulses with a quiet intimacy, the creak of floorboards and the distant coo of pigeons on the roof, creating a cocoon of shared endurance, where stories unfold in whispers, binding you all in this threadbare tapestry of life. As the clock ticks toward 9 or 10 p.m., exhaustion claims you fully, drawing you to bed, a pallet of straw-stuffed ticking that rustles beneath your weight, the thin blanket offering scant shield against the night's chill seeping through cracked windows. You collapse into it, bones sighing in relief, and drift toward sleep with dreams of better days flickering like distant lanterns, visions of plentiful markets, or a windfall that eases the grind. The city's nocturnal symphony plays on outside, the occasional clip-clop of a late horse, the muffled cry of a night watchman, all blending into a soothing hum that lulls you under. but woven into this wind down are the gritty realities that underscore why you wouldn't last in this vendor's unyielding world, their weight settling like a gentle fog over your fading thoughts. The cumulative toll exacts a heavy price, shortening lifespans by 10 to 20 years through relentless hardship, the ceaseless exposure to elements that chap skin and weaken lungs, the malnutrition that hollows cheeks and dims eyes, with no retirement to soften the twilight years, just an endless horizon of labor until body or spirit gives way. Emotional strain lingers too, a constant undercurrent of fear, the specter of poverty gnawing at your edges, where one failed week could usher you to the workhouse's grim embrace, those dreaded institutions with their stench of unwashed despair and regimented drudgery, a fate that haunts your dreams like a shadow, mildly absurd in its inevitability, yet profoundly wearying. For a reflective modern contrast, envision today's gig workers logging off their apps with a satisfied tap, earnings tracked in real time on glowing screens that tally tips and bonuses with effortless precision. They pivot to rest or leisure, bolstered by access to health care that mends what hardship strains. Echoes of your precarious existence persist in their freelance fluxes, but laced with more agency, like safety nets of insurance or flexible hours that buffer the blows you face bare. It's whimsically poignant, isn't it? How technology and support tame the wild uncertainties that once defined survival, turning your perpetual scramble into a more manageable rhythm. To wrap this evening's reflection on the vendor's lot, let us linger on the words of Henry Mayhew, that keen observer of London's underbelly. The street seller's life is one of perpetual struggle. Indeed, as you lie there in the quiet dark, the day's cycle complete, from dawn's hopeful stirrings through midday's bustle and afternoon's fade, to this night's hushed repose, you sense the truth in it, a gentle absurdity in the endless loop where small triumphs punctuate the weariness, forging resilience amid the city's indifferent whirl. Yet in this struggle lies a quiet poetry, the rhythm of survival humming like a lullaby into the night. As the night's quiet poetry fades into a deeper hush, wrapping the city's weary soul in its embrace, we draw this journey through a Victorian street vendor's day to a gentle close, the echoes of struggle softening like distant whispers on the wind. Imagine the fog settling over the cobblestone streets now, thick and silvery under the moon's faint glow, muffling the last remnants of the day's clamor, the faint drip of dew from overhanging eaves, the soft sigh of wind through narrow alleys, carrying with it the lingering sense of coal fires and damp earth. Let these tales of endurance and quiet absurdity lull you into a peaceful reverie, a soothing bridge to your own restful night. In this immersive wander through history's shadowed paths, we've glimpsed the relentless rhythm that defined survival, laced with sensory echoes that draw you in, much like a bedtime story whispered by time itself. And as you drift, ponder this: why not share in the comments below if you'd last a day in those unforgiving shoes, trundling a barrow through the chill dawn, haggling under the midday sun, or tallying pennies by candlelight. Your thoughts add to the tapestry, connecting past absurdities to our modern reflections. If these relaxing historical narratives have eased your evening, consider subscribing for more ambient tales from bygone eras, sleep aids woven with vivid details and mild humor, perfect for unwinding or falling asleep to the gentle cadence of history.